The old truck rattled to a stop at the end of the dirt road. Beyond this point, there was nothing but wilderness. Tom Henderson stepped out, his boots crunching on the gravel. He was 52 years old, with a thick gray beard and hands roughened by years of outdoor work. The mountain air was crisp and clean, filling his lungs as he looked up at the towering pine trees ahead. Tom had been planning this trip for months. His grandfather had built a cabin somewhere deep in these mountains back in the 1940s. The family had used it for years, but after his grandfather died and the family scattered across the country, everyone had simply forgotten about it. That is, until Tom found an old deed while cleaning out his late father's attic. The property was still in the family name. Still legally his. He shouldered his heavy backpack and started walking. The forest was dense, almost untouched. Moss covered the rocks, and the only sounds were birds singing and the distant rush of a stream. Tom had a rough map, hand-drawn by his grandfather decades ago, but the landmarks had changed. Trees had fallen, new ones had grown. He relied mostly on his compass and instinct. The first day passed without finding anything. Tom made camp as the sun set, cooking a simple meal over a small fire. The second day was more of the same, pushing through thick underbrush and climbing over fallen logs. His legs ached, but he kept going. This wasn't just about claiming property. It was about connecting with his grandfather, a man he barely remembered but deeply respected. On the morning of the third day, something changed. Tom noticed marks on the trees, old axe cuts nearly grown over but still visible. His heart beat faster. These were trail markers. His grandfather had marked the way to the cabin. Tom followed them carefully, his excitement building with each discovery. The valley opened up before him suddenly. One moment he was pushing through thick forest. The next he was standing at the edge of a small clearing. And there it was. The cabin sat nestled against a rocky hillside, its log walls weathered to a silvery gray. The roof had a few holes, but it was still standing. Tom felt a surge of emotion. His grandfather had built this with his own hands, log by log, but as Tom got closer, something felt off. The windows were dark and empty, which he expected. But there were strange marks around the door, deep scratches in the wood running vertically down the frame. They looked fresh. Tom's hand instinctively went to the hunting knife on his belt. He approached slowly, his boots silent on the soft forest floor. The door was slightly open, hanging crooked on old hinges. Tom pushed it wider, and it groaned loudly. The sound echoed in the silence. He waited, listening. Nothing. Just his own breathing and the hammering of his heart. The inside of the cabin was darker than he expected. The windows were so dirty that barely any light came through. Tom pulled out his flashlight and clicked it on. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing a single room. There was an old stone fireplace on one wall, a rusty iron bed frame in the corner, and a wooden table that had somehow survived the decades. But there was other stuff too. Stuff that didn't belong. Piles of pine branches arranged like a nest, animal bones scattered across the floor, and a smell, wild and musty, like a den. Tom's flashlight beam swept across the room, and that's when he saw her. In the far corner, pressed against the wall, was a child. A girl. She was small and thin, her face mostly hidden by a mass of tangled, dirty hair, but her eyes caught the light, reflecting it back like an animal's eyes do. They were wide and terrified and furious all at once. Tom froze. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. A kid out here, miles from anywhere? The girl's lips pulled back and she made a sound that turned Tom's blood to ice. It wasn't a scream or a cry. It was a growl, deep and threatening, coming from her throat like she was a cornered wolf. Her hands were pressed against the floor, her body coiled and ready to attack or flee. Tom slowly raised his hands, showing he meant no harm. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl's growl intensified. She moved slightly, and Tom saw she was wearing something made from animal skins, roughly tied around her body. Her hands and feet were dirty, the nails long and broken. She looked like she'd been living wild for a very long time. Tom's thoughts raced. How long had she been out here? Where did she come from? Was she alone? The questions flooded his mind, but he knew better than to make any sudden moves. This child was terrified, and she was acting on pure instinct. He took a small step backward, still keeping his hands visible. The girl watched his every move, her body tense. Tom took another step back, then another. He backed slowly out of the cabin, never taking his eyes off her. Once outside, Tom walked quickly away from the cabin, his heart pounding. When he was about 50 yards away, he stopped and turned back. The cabin sat silent in the clearing, but he knew she was in there watching him. He could feel her eyes on him. Tom set down his pack and tried to think clearly. This was insane. A wild child living in his grandfather's old cabin miles from civilization. He needed to get help, but the nearest ranger station was 3 days away. He couldn't just leave her here alone. What if something happened to her while he was gone? He decided to make camp right there and watch the cabin. As he set up his small tent, his hands were shaking. Not from fear, but from the shock of what he'd found. That little girl was someone's daughter. Someone somewhere was probably still looking for her, or mourning her. As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and purple, Tom built a small fire. He cooked some food and tried to settle his nerves. The forest around him grew darker and the night sounds began. Owls hooting, small animals rustling in the underbrush, and then something else. Tom looked up and his breath caught. Coming out of the tree line, moving silently like shadows, were wolves. Not just one or two. A whole pack. 5 of them, maybe 6. They moved with purpose, heading straight for the cabin. Tom grabbed his flashlight, ready to shout and scare them away. But then something incredible happened. The cabin door opened and the girl stepped out. She dropped to her hands and knees and made a sound, a kind of whining bark. The wolves didn't attack. They didn't even hesitate. The largest wolf, a beautiful gray female, walked right up to the girl. The child pressed her face against the wolf's fur and the animal licked her face gently, like a mother greeting her pup. The other wolves circled around them, tails wagging. They were a family, a pack, and the girl was one of them. Tom sat frozen by his fire, watching this impossible scene. The girl wasn't lost or abandoned. She had been adopted, raised by wolves. He'd heard stories about such things, legends and myths from other countries, but this was real. This was happening right in front of him, in the American wilderness. The wolves stayed for about an hour, lying around the girl while she sat with them. Then, as mysteriously as they'd come, they melted back into the forest. The girl watched them go, then returned to the cabin. The door closed and the clearing was silent again. Tom sat by his fire long into the night, his mind spinning. He'd come here looking for an old cabin, a piece of family history. Instead, he'd found something much more incredible and much more complicated. That little girl needed help. She needed to return to the human world, to find her real family. But watching her with those wolves, seeing the gentleness between them, Tom wondered if he had the right to take her away from the only family she knew. Could she even survive in the human world anymore? Had she been wild too long? These questions haunted him as he finally crawled into his tent. Tomorrow he would try to approach her again. Somehow he would find a way to help her. But tonight all he could do was lie awake, staring at the canvas ceiling and wonder what tomorrow would bring. Tom woke up to the sound of ravens calling overhead. His body was stiff from sleeping on the hard ground, and for a moment he forgot where he was. Then it all came rushing back. The cabin, the girl, the wolves. He crawled out of his tent and looked across the clearing. The cabin door was closed, and everything looked peaceful in the morning light. But Tom knew better. That child was in there, and she was as wild as any animal in these woods. He made himself breakfast, keeping his movements slow and calm. He didn't want to spook her. While his coffee heated over the small camp stove, Tom thought about his next move. He couldn't just barge in there again. That hadn't worked. He needed a different approach. After eating, Tom walked halfway to the cabin and stopped. He sat down on a fallen log where she could see him clearly from the windows. Then he just waited. He didn't call out or make any threatening moves. He simply sat there, showing her he wasn't going anywhere, but also wasn't going to hurt her. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher in the sky. Tom's legs got cramped, but he didn't move. He was a patient man. Years of hunting had taught him that patience always won in the end. You couldn't rush wild things. They came to you on their own terms, or not at all. Around midday, he saw movement at one of the windows. Just a flash of matted hair and those reflective eyes. She was watching him. Good. That meant she was curious. Curiosity was the first step toward trust. Tom pulled out some beef jerky from his pack and made a show of eating it. He chewed slowly, enjoying it. Then he took a few pieces and walked closer to the cabin. Not all the way to the door, just close enough. He set the jerky on a flat rock and walked back to his log. He waited another hour. Nothing happened. Then, as the afternoon shadows grew longer, the cabin door cracked open. Just an inch. Tom kept perfectly still. The door opened wider and a small hand reached out. It grabbed the jerky and disappeared back inside. The door slammed shut. Tom smiled. It was a tiny victory, but it was something. She'd accepted food from him. That was progress. Over the next 2 days, Tom repeated this pattern. He'd sit on his log, wait patiently, and leave food offerings. Each time she took them. Each time she opened the door a little wider. He varied the food, bringing out apples, dried fruit, crackers, anything that might appeal to her. On the third evening, Tom decided to try something different. He'd been thinking about those wolves, about how they'd greeted her. Animals responded to certain sounds, certain tones. Maybe she would too. As the sun set, Tom began to hum. It was an old song his mother used to sing to him when he was small, a simple melody, soft and gentle. He hummed it over and over, letting the sound drift across the clearing. At first, nothing happened. But then he noticed the cabin door was open slightly. Not to reach for food, just open, like she was listening. Tom kept humming, rocking slightly as he did. The tune filled the quiet evening air, mixing with the sounds of crickets and distant birds. He closed his eyes and lost himself in the memory of his mother's voice, her gentle hands tucking him into bed. When he opened his eyes, his heart nearly stopped. The girl was standing in the doorway, not hiding, not crouched, just standing there watching him. Her head was tilted to one side like a dog trying to understand a new sound. Tom stopped humming but didn't move otherwise. They stared at each other across the clearing. In the fading light, he could see her more clearly. She was small and painfully thin. Her hair was a wild tangle of brown, full of leaves and dirt. The animal skin clothing hung loose on her frame. But her face beneath all that grime was young. So young. Maybe 11 or 12 years old. She made a sound. Not a growl this time. Something softer, almost questioning. Tom's throat tightened with emotion. Somewhere inside that wild exterior was a human child. A little girl who had somehow survived impossible odds. He wanted to speak to her, to tell her everything would be okay, but he knew words might scare her away. So he just nodded slowly and smiled, a gentle, non-threatening smile. The girl watched him for another minute, then turned and went back inside. The door closed, but Tom noticed she didn't slam it this time. She closed it softly, almost carefully. That night the wolves came again. Tom had been expecting them. He watched from his tent as they emerged from the forest, their eyes glowing in the darkness. The girl came out to meet them, and Tom witnessed the same incredible scene as before. But this time he noticed details he'd missed. The way the big gray female positioned herself protectively near the girl. How a younger wolf brought her something in its mouth, a dead rabbit, and laid it at her feet. The girl picked it up and tore into it with her teeth, eating the raw meat without hesitation. Tom had to look away for a moment. It was hard to watch, hard to reconcile this wild creature with the image of a normal child, but he forced himself to keep watching. He needed to understand her world if he was going to help her. The wolves stayed longer this night, almost 2 hours. The girl lay among them, her head resting on the gray female's side. They groomed her, licking her face and hair. She groomed them back, picking through their fur with her fingers. It was intimate and gentle and completely natural to them. When the pack finally left, the girl stood at the edge of the clearing and watched them go. She made a sound, a long howl that echoed through the valley. The wolves answered from deep in the forest, their voices carrying through the night. Then silence fell again. Tom realized something important that night. This wasn't just a lost child who'd survived in the woods. This was a child who had been adopted by a wolf pack, raised by them, taught by them. She wasn't just living with wolves. She had become one of them. The next morning, Tom made a decision. He needed to go get help. This was too big for him to handle alone. The girl needed experts, people who understood wild children and animal behavior. She needed doctors and authorities who could figure out who she was and where she came from. But 3 days there and 3 days back meant leaving her alone for almost a week. What if something happened to her? What if she disappeared deeper into the wilderness? Tom wrestled with the choice all morning. Finally, he decided. He would leave her enough food to last, make sure she knew he was coming back, and go get help. It was risky, but staying here doing nothing was worse. Tom spent the afternoon preparing. He gathered all the food he could spare and placed it near the cabin. He left his spare blanket even though he doubted she'd use it. And he left a note, knowing she probably couldn't read it but leaving it anyway. It said simply, "I will come back. I want to help you. You are safe." As the sun set on his fourth day at the cabin, Tom packed up his tent and gear. He took one last look at the cabin, hoping to see her one more time. The door stayed closed, but he knew she was watching. He could feel it. "I'll be back," he called out. "I promise. I'm going to get help." There was no response. Tom shouldered his pack and started walking. Every few steps he looked back. The cabin grew smaller behind him. When he reached the tree line, he stopped and turned one last time. The girl was standing in the doorway watching him leave. Even from this distance, he could see her small figure outlined against the dark cabin. She didn't wave or call out. She just stood there, as still as a deer watching a predator. Tom raised his hand in goodbye, then turned and walked into the forest. His heart was heavy, but his mind was made up. He was going to save this child. No matter what it took, she deserved a chance at a normal life, at being human again. Behind him, the girl watched until he disappeared completely. Then she tilted her head back and howled. The sound was lonely and haunting, echoing through the mountains. Deep in the forest, her pack answered. They were calling her home. The hike back to civilization felt longer than Tom remembered. Every step away from that cabin weighed on him. He kept thinking about the girl, wondering if she was okay, if she understood he was coming back. The forest seemed quieter now, as if even the birds knew something important had changed. On the second day of hiking, Tom's knee started acting up. An old injury from years ago that flared up when he pushed too hard. He had to slow down, rest more often. It added another full day to his journey. By the time he finally saw the ranger station through the trees, he was exhausted, hungry, and more worried than ever. The ranger on duty was a young guy named Pete, maybe in his late 20s. He looked up from his paperwork when Tom walked in, dirty and wild-eyed. "Sir, are you okay?" "You look like you've been through hell," Pete said, standing up quickly. Tom collapsed into a chair. "I need to report something. Something you're not going to believe." Pete listened as Tom told the whole story. The cabin, the girl, the wolves. With each detail, Pete's expression shifted from concern to skepticism to outright disbelief. "Sir, are you sure you saw what you think you saw? Sometimes in the wilderness, especially when you're alone, the mind can play tricks." "I know what I saw." Tom cut him off firmly. "There's a child living in that cabin. A wild child. She's been there for years, living with wolves. I'm not crazy and I'm not making this up." Pete scratched his head. "Okay, let's say I believe you. Do you have any proof?" Tom pulled out his camera. He'd managed to take a few photos from a distance. They weren't great, too far away and slightly blurry, but you could see the cabin and a small figure in the doorway. You could see the wolves in the clearing. Pete's face went pale as he looked through the pictures. "Holy, okay, this is real. We need to call this in. This is way above my pay grade." Over the next few hours, the ranger station became a hub of activity. Pete contacted his supervisor, who contacted law enforcement, who contacted social services. Everyone had questions. Everyone wanted to see the photos, and everyone seemed to have a different opinion about what to do next. By evening, a plan was starting to form. They would assemble a small team and return to the cabin. The team would include Tom, a wildlife expert, someone from Child Protective Services, and a couple of experienced rangers. They couldn't just barge in with a big group. That would terrify the girl and probably drive her deeper into the wilderness. But there was a problem. It would take days to coordinate everyone, to get the right people together. Tom paced the ranger station anxiously. Each day that passed was another day the girl was alone. Another day something could go wrong. Finally, after 3 long days of planning and preparation, they were ready. The team assembled early one morning. There was Dr. Linda Chen, a wildlife biologist who had studied wolf behavior for 20 years. There was Rachel Martinez from Child Services, a kind woman with gray hair and gentle eyes who had worked with traumatized children for decades. 2 rangers, Pete and an older guy named George, would provide support and navigation. They set out at dawn. Tom led the way, retracing the path he'd taken before. This time, with his knee still bothering him and a group to coordinate, it took longer. 4 days instead of 3. Tom tried not to think about what those extra days might mean. When they finally reached the valley, Tom's heart was pounding. What if she was gone? What if the wolves had moved on and taken her with them? He led the group to the edge of the clearing and raised his hand for everyone to stop. The cabin looked exactly as he'd left it. Quiet. Still. The food he'd left was gone, which was a good sign. It meant she was still here, still eating. Dr. Chen pulled out binoculars and studied the cabin and surrounding area. "I can see tracks," she whispered. "Wolf tracks, lots of them. And smaller prints, too. Barefoot human prints." Rachel looked nervous. "How do we approach this? If she's as feral as you say, she might react violently to strangers." Tom thought about the past few days before he'd left. "She was starting to trust me a little. I think I should go first, alone, let her see me again. Then maybe we can introduce one other person. But slowly, very slowly." The team set up camp at the edge of the clearing just like Tom had done before. Then Tom walked out alone, back to his favorite fallen log. He sat down and waited just like before. The others watched from behind the trees, staying hidden. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. Tom's legs cramped, his back ached, but he didn't move. He was showing her he was back, that he'd kept his promise. Finally, as afternoon turned to evening, the cabin door opened. The girl stepped out and stood in the doorway. She looked the same, wild and wary, but there was something different in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or relief. Tom smiled at her. "Hi," he said softly. "I came back. Just like I promised." The girl didn't respond with words, but she didn't growl either. She just watched him with those intense eyes, trying to figure out what he wanted. Tom reached into his pack and pulled out something new. A picture book. It was meant for young children, with bright illustrations of families, houses, pets. He held it up so she could see the colorful cover. "I brought you something," he said. He stood slowly and walked toward the cabin, stopping about 20 feet away. He set the book on the ground and backed away. The girl watched him carefully. When he returned to his log, she crept forward like a cautious animal. She circled the book, sniffing it. Then she picked it up and turned it over in her hands. The bright colors seemed to fascinate her. She carried the book back to the cabin, sat down in the doorway, and opened it. Tom watched as she looked at each page, her fingers tracing the pictures. At one image of a mother hugging a child, she paused for a long time. Her hand touched the picture gently, almost longingly. Tom felt his throat tighten. Somewhere in her memories, buried deep under years of survival, there had to be fragments of her old life. A real mother, a real home, a time before the wolves. As the sun set, Tom did something risky. He started humming again, that same lullaby from before. The girl's head snapped up. She closed the book and stood, listening intently. Tom kept humming, gentle and steady. The girl took a step toward him. Then another. She was moving closer than she ever had before, drawn by the familiar sound. Tom's heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm, to keep humming, to not make any sudden moves. She stopped about 10 feet away. Close enough that Tom could see the dirt on her face, the scars on her arms, the way her homemade clothes were held together with strips of bark and sinew. She was so small, so fragile-looking, yet she'd survived impossible odds. Tom stopped humming and spoke very softly. "You're safe. I know you don't understand that yet, but you are. We're going to help you. We're going to take care of you." The girl tilted her head, studying him. Then she did something that shocked him. She spoke. Just one word, rough and barely recognizable, like she'd forgotten how human voices worked. "Tom." He stared at her. You remember my name?" She didn't answer. But she'd heard him say it to the Rangers, must have remembered it somehow. That single word proved something crucial. Her human mind was still there, still working, still capable of language. Behind the trees, Dr. Chen whispered to the others. "Did you hear that?" She spoke. "That's incredible. Most feral children lose language completely if they're isolated long enough." Tom slowly stood up. "Yes, I'm Tom, and you are. Do you remember your name?" The girl's face scrunched up like she was trying to remember something from a long-ago dream. Her lips moved, testing sounds. Then very quietly she said another word. "Lily." Tom felt tears prick his eyes. "Lily. That's a beautiful name." The girl, Lily, looked back at the cabin, then at Tom. She seemed torn between two worlds. The wild one she knew, and this strange human reaching out to her. "I have friends here," Tom said gently. "Good people who want to help you. Can they come meet you?" Lily's body tensed immediately. She dropped to a crouch, ready to flee. It's okay, Tom said quickly. Not tonight. Maybe tomorrow. Just think about it, okay? Lily stared at him a moment longer, then turned and ran back to the cabin. The door closed and she was gone. But that night, when the wolves came, Tom saw something different. Lily greeted her pack like always, nuzzling and playing with them. But several times she looked over at Tom's camp. She was aware of him in a new way, not just as a threat or a curiosity, but as something else, something she couldn't quite name yet. Connection. The beginning of trust. And maybe, just maybe, hope. The next morning, Tom gathered the team to share what had happened. When he told them the girl had spoken her name, Rachel's eyes widened. Lily, she repeated softly. That's not a common name anymore. And if she remembers it after all these years? Rachel pulled out a tablet from her bag. Even out here, she'd brought equipment. Let me search missing children databases. Maybe we'll get lucky. The team had brought a satellite internet device for emergencies. Rachel connected to it and started searching. Missing children named Lily, age range between 8 and 14, last seen in or near wilderness areas. The search parameters were specific, but the database was huge. Tom sat with Dr. Chen while Rachel worked. The wildlife biologist was fascinated by everything he'd told her about the wolves. A pack adopting a human child, she said, shaking her head in wonder. It's extraordinarily rare. There have been cases throughout history, but most are myths or unverified stories. If this is real, if we can document it properly, it could change everything we understand about wolf behavior. She's not a science experiment, Tom said more sharply than he intended. She's a kid who needs help. Dr. Chen nodded quickly. Of course. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant she's survived something remarkable. The bond between her and that pack must be incredibly strong. They talked about how to approach the situation. Dr. Chen explained that separating Lily from the wolves too quickly could be traumatic, maybe even dangerous. The pack was her family. In her mind, they were her safety, her survival. We need to show her that humans can provide the same things, Dr. Chen said. Safety, food, affection. But it has to be on her terms. Pete and George had been scouting the area, making sure there were no other dangers nearby. They returned with interesting news. They'd found a second clearing about a mile away with old camping equipment scattered around. A torn backpack, a broken lantern, the remnants of a campfire that looked years old. Someone was here, George said. Long time ago. Maybe 7, 8 years based on how weathered everything is. Rachel looked up from her tablet, her face pale. I think I found her. Everyone gathered around as Rachel turned the screen so they could see. There was a missing child report from 8 years ago. The girl's name was Lily Patterson. She'd been 4 years old when she disappeared during a family camping trip in this mountain range. The photo showed a smiling little girl with brown hair and bright eyes. She was holding a stuffed wolf toy and wearing a t-shirt with cartoon animals on it. She looked happy and loved and completely normal. The family was camping, Rachel read from the report. Father, mother, and young daughter. A severe storm came through unexpectedly. Heavy rain, lightning, high winds. The parents' tent collapsed. In the chaos and darkness, they became separated from Lily. By the time the storm passed, she was gone. Tom felt sick. He could imagine it so clearly. A terrified 4-year-old lost in the dark, crying for parents who couldn't find her. Somehow she'd stumbled upon the cabin, his grandfather's cabin, and somehow she'd survived. Search and rescue looked for weeks, Rachel continued. They covered hundreds of square miles, but they never found her. Eventually, she was presumed dead. The case is still officially open, but inactive. What about the parents? Tom asked. Rachel scrolled down. Father's name is David Patterson. Mother is Jennifer. They divorced 2 years after Lily disappeared. The grief. It destroyed their marriage. David moved to Oregon. Jennifer stayed in Washington State. Both are still alive. The weight of that information settled over the group. Somewhere out there, 2 people were living with the unbearable pain of losing their child. And that child was alive, just 50 feet away, living in a cabin with wolves as her family. We have to tell them, Rachel said. But we need to be careful. We can't promise anything until we're sure. Until we can get Lily to safety and confirm her identity. Tom thought about the little girl in the photo and the wild child in the cabin. They were the same person, separated by 8 years of impossible survival. How do you bridge that gap? How do you take someone who'd become a wolf and turn them back into a girl? That afternoon, Tom approached the cabin again. This time, he brought Dr. Chen with him. They moved slowly, making sure Lily could see them coming. Tom carried more picture books and some fresh fruit they'd brought from town. Lily appeared in the doorway, watching them. When she saw the stranger, her body tensed. She growled low in her throat. "It's okay," Tom said softly. "This is Dr. Chen. She's a friend. She loves wolves just like you do." Dr. Chen sat down on the ground, making herself small and non-threatening. She didn't stare directly at Lily, knowing that direct eye contact could be seen as aggressive. Instead, she looked down at her hands and spoke in a calm, gentle voice. "Hello, Lily. I've spent my whole life studying wolves. They're amazing animals, so smart and loyal. You're very lucky to have a pack that loves you." Lily's growl softened. The fact that this stranger spoke about wolves with respect seemed to ease her fear slightly. Tom set down the books and fruit. "We brought you more things, and we wanted to talk to you about something important." Over the next hour, they tried to explain things in simple terms. That Lily had a mother and father. That they'd been looking for her. That they'd never stopped loving her. Dr. Chen used the picture books to help explain, pointing to families and homes. Lily listened, her expression unreadable. Sometimes she seemed to understand. Other times she looked confused or even angry. When Tom showed her the missing child report photo on Rachel's tablet, Lily stared at it for a long time. "That's you," Tom said gently. "A long time ago. Before you came here." Lily touched the screen, her finger tracing the image of the little girl holding the stuffed wolf. Did she remember? Was there any part of her that recalled being that child? She handed the tablet back and spoke again. Her words were rough and hard to understand, but they got the meaning. Home here, pack family. Tom's heart broke a little. In her mind, the cabin was home. The wolves were her family. Everything else, including her human parents, was distant and unreal. "I know," Tom said, "and we're not trying to take you away from what you love. But you're human, Lily. You need other humans too. You need medicine and food," and he trailed off. "How do you explain civilization to someone who'd lived wild for most of their life? How do you convince them they needed something they'd survived without?" Dr. Chen tried a different approach. "Your wolf family taught you how to survive here. They kept you safe, but they can't teach you human things. They can't teach you to read or to talk or to understand the human world. And the human world is part of who you are too." Lily looked between them, processing this information in her own way. Then she stood abruptly and went back into the cabin. For a moment, Tom thought she was retreating, shutting down. But she came back out carrying something. It was an old, rotted stuffed animal, maybe a dog or a wolf. Hard to tell after years of weather and decay, but it was clearly a child's toy. She must have had it with her when she got lost. She'd kept it all these years. "Wolf," she said, holding it up. Her voice cracked with emotion. "Mine," Tom understood. This toy connected her to her past, to the little girl she'd been. She hadn't completely forgotten. Somewhere deep inside, she remembered being loved, being human, having parents who gave her toys and tucked her in at night. "Yes," Tom said, his voice thick. "Yours, you can keep it. You can keep anything that's important to you." That evening, the team discussed their next steps. They needed to contact Lily's parents, but carefully. They needed to plan how to transition Lily from this wildlife to civilization, and they needed to do it in a way that wouldn't completely destroy her. Rachel made the hardest phone call of her career that night. She contacted Jennifer Patterson first, Lily's mother. The conversation was brief and emotional. Jennifer didn't believe it at first. How could she? She'd buried her daughter in her heart years ago. "Are you sure?" Jennifer kept asking, her voice breaking. "Are you absolutely sure it's her?" "We're very sure," Rachel said gently. "But she's not the same little girl you remember. She's been living wild for 8 years. She's going to need a lot of help, a lot of time. You need to prepare yourself for that." Jennifer was crying now. "I don't care. I don't care what she's like. She's alive. My baby is alive. When can I see her?" "Soon," Rachel promised. "But we have to do this right. We have to think about what's best for Lily." After the call ended, Rachel sat quietly for a long time. Tom found her wiping tears from her eyes. "This job never gets easier," she said. "No matter how many years I do it." That mother's voice, the hope and fear mixed together. Tom nodded. He understood. They all felt the weight of what they were trying to do. They were trying to bridge 8 years of lost time. trying to reconnect a wild child with the human world, trying to give a mother back her daughter. And somewhere in that cabin, Lily lay curled up in her nest of pine branches, clutching a rotted stuffed wolf, caught between two worlds and not sure which one she belonged to anymore. The team knew they couldn't just grab Lily and leave. That would be cruel and potentially dangerous. She needed to choose to come with them, or at least accept it willingly. But how do you convince a wild child that leaving the only family she knows is the right choice? Dr. Chen came up with a plan. They would need to separate Lily from the wolf pack temporarily, just long enough to build trust and show her that humans could provide safety and comfort too. It felt manipulative, but everyone agreed there was no other way. Wolves are territorial, Dr. Chen explained. They patrol their territory in patterns. If we can figure out their routine, we can time our approach for when they're furthest away. That gives us a window to really connect with Lily without the pack interfering. For 3 days, they observed. They watched when the wolves came, when they left, how long they stayed. A pattern emerged. The pack usually arrived just before dusk and stayed until late evening. Then they'd disappear into the forest to hunt, returning briefly around dawn. The window between their evening departure and dawn return was their best chance. Lily would be alone, possibly scared, definitely vulnerable. It wasn't ideal, but nothing about this situation was. On the 4th day, they put the plan into action. As evening approached, they watched the wolves arrive as usual. Lily greeted them with her customary enthusiasm, rolling and playing with them in the clearing. The big gray female, clearly the alpha, stayed close to Lily the entire time. Tom felt guilty watching it. They were about to interrupt this bond, this family. But he reminded himself why. Lily was human. She deserved a chance at a human life, even if she didn't understand that yet. As darkness fell, the pack grew restless. They began their departure ritual, licking Lily's face and circling her protectively. Then one by one they melted into the forest. Lily stood at the edge of the clearing and howled after them, her voice echoing through the mountains. The team waited an hour to make sure the pack was truly gone. Then Tom approached the cabin alone. He carried a lantern, blankets, and a thermos of hot soup. Simple comfort items. Lily was sitting in the doorway looking small and lonely. When she saw Tom, she didn't growl or run. She just watched him with sad eyes. "Hey," Tom said softly, sitting down about 10 feet from her. "Your family had to go hunting. But you're not alone. I'm here." He poured some soup into a cup and offered it to her. The smell made her nostrils flare. She crept forward cautiously and took the cup. The hot liquid surprised her at first, but then she drank greedily, the warmth spreading through her body. "Good, right?" Tom smiled. "Humans make good food too, not just wolves." Over the next hour, Tom slowly moved closer. He showed her the lantern, letting her see how the flame danced inside the glass. He wrapped one of the blankets around his shoulders and offered her the other. She took it hesitantly, feeling the soft fabric. "My name is Tom," he said again, pointing to himself. "Tom, and you're Lily." He pointed to her. "Lily, human, like me." She repeated the words quietly. "Tom, Lily, human." Behind the trees, Rachel and Dr. Chen watched anxiously. This was the most progress anyone had made. Lily was engaging, responding, even seeming to enjoy the interaction. Tom pulled out a picture book, the same one showing families. He opened it slowly, letting Lily see each page. When they got to the page with a mother and father hugging a child, Tom pointed to it. "This is a family," he said. "You had a family like this, a mama and a papa who loved you very much." Lily stared at the picture. Her hand reached out and touched the mother's face on the page. "Mama," she whispered. The word was broken and rough, but unmistakable. Tom felt his throat tighten. "Yes, your mama. She's been looking for you for so long. She misses you. She wants to see you again." "Mama," Lily repeated, this time with more emotion. A tear rolled down her dirty cheek. Tom decided to take a risk. He slowly reached out his hand, palm up, non-threatening. "Can I come closer? Can we sit together?" Lily looked at his hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and touched his fingers with hers. Her hand was small and rough, the nails broken and dirty, but it was a human hand making a human connection. Tom moved closer slowly until he was sitting right next to her. He kept the blanket around his shoulders and made sure she felt safe. They sat like that for a while, looking at the stars together. "The world is big, Lily," Tom said quietly. "Bigger than these mountains. There are cities with lights like stars. There are people who would love to know you. And your mama and papa, they're out there waiting." Lily leaned against him slightly, just a small movement, but it meant everything. She was allowing human comfort. Accepting human presence, Rachel saw her moment. She slowly emerged from the trees, moving carefully. Dr. Chen followed. Lily tensed immediately when she saw them, but Tom put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It's okay. These are friends. They want to help you. Rachel here, she talks to your mama. She can tell your mama you're okay." Rachel sat down on Lily's other side, keeping her movements slow and calm. "Hi, Lily, I talked to your mama today. She cried when I told her we found you. Happy tears. She loves you so much." Lily looked at Rachel with wide, uncertain eyes. "Mama, this cries?" "Yes, because she's happy. Because she thought you were gone forever, but you're not. You're here. You're alive." Dr. Chen joined them, completing a circle around Lily. They didn't crowd her, but they surrounded her with human presence, human warmth. They talked quietly, telling her stories about the world beyond the mountains, about schools where children learn, about homes with warm beds, about families who eat meals together. Lily listened to it all, her expression shifting between curiosity and fear. This was everything she didn't know, everything the wolves couldn't teach her. As the night grew deeper, Rachel brought out a photo album. It was something she'd asked Jennifer to send by emergency courier to the ranger station. Photos of Lily as a baby, as a toddler with her parents. The life she'd had before. Lily looked through the photos slowly. Her finger traced the images of a younger version of herself, smiling and happy in her mother's arms. At one photo of her 4th birthday party, she stopped. There was a cake with candles, balloons, and a pile of presents. And in the corner of the photo, a stuffed wolf toy. Lily grabbed her old rotted toy and held it up next to the photo. Same toy, same wolf. She looked at the team with something like understanding dawning in her eyes. "This was my life," she said slowly, the words hard but clear. "Before." "Yes," Tom said. "And it can be your life again. Different, but still good. Still full of love." Lily was quiet for a long time. The team didn't push. They just sat with her, present and patient. Finally, as the sky began to lighten with approaching dawn, Lily spoke. "Mama and Papa, they want me?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweetheart. They never stopped wanting you. Not for one single day." Lily looked toward the forest where her wolf pack had disappeared. "But Peck, they want me too." "I know," Dr. Chen said gently. "The wolves love you. They saved you. They're your family too. And we're not saying you can never see them again. But you need humans too. You need medicine and school and people who can teach you human things. Can wolves visit?" Lily asked, her voice small and scared. Tom made a decision right then, even though he had no authority to make it. "Yes, we'll make sure you can still see them. We'll find a way." It was a promise he had no idea how to keep, but he made it anyway, because Lily needed to hear it. She needed to know she wasn't losing her wolf family, just gaining her human one back. As the sun rose, painting the sky pink and gold, Lily made her choice. She stood up, clutching her stuffed wolf, and looked at Tom. "Okay," she said simply. "I come." Those 2 words represented a leap of faith bigger than anything most people make in a lifetime. She was leaving the only safety she'd known for 8 years. She was choosing to trust humans again. The team packed up quickly, wanting to leave before the wolf pack returned. They were worried about how the wolves might react to seeing Lily leave with strangers. As they gathered their things, Lily went back into the cabin one last time. She emerged with a few items. Her stuffed wolf, some interesting rocks she'd collected, and a collar, old and weathered, with a name tag that read Shadow. It must have belonged to the gray alpha female, back when she'd been someone's pet before she went wild. For remember, Lily said, clutching these treasures, they began the long walk out of the mountains. Lily moved on all 4s at first, finding it more natural. But Tom gently encouraged her to walk upright, holding her hand. She struggled at first, her legs unused to the motion, but slowly, step by step, she remembered how humans walk. Behind them, somewhere in the forest, a howl rang out. The alpha female had returned and found Lily gone. The sound was mournful, almost human in its grief. Lily stopped walking and howled back. The sound echoed through the valley, a goodbye to the family that had raised her. Then she took Tom's hand again and kept walking, moving toward a future she couldn't yet imagine. The journey out of the mountains was harder than anyone expected. Lily had lived wild for so long that every aspect of civilization confused and frightened her. When they reached the parked vehicles at the trailhead, she backed away, growling at the trucks like they were giant predators. "It's okay," Tom said, keeping his voice calm. "These are like metal caves that move. They help us travel far distances quickly." Lily circled the truck suspiciously, sniffing it. She touched the cold metal with her hand and jerked back. Everything about it was wrong to her. The smell of gasoline, the hardness of the tires, the unnatural shine of the paint. Getting her inside took almost an hour. Rachel finally convinced her by sitting in the truck with the door open, showing it was safe. Lily eventually climbed in, but she pressed herself against the door, trembling. When George started the engine, Lily screamed. It was a purely animal sound of terror. She clawed at the door, trying to escape. Tom quickly rolled down the window and the fresh air seemed to help. He held her hand and talked to her the entire drive, explaining everything they passed. "See those? Those are other cars. More metal caves. And those tall things are called buildings. That's where humans live. And those are power lines. They carry electricity, which is like captured lightning that gives us light and heat." Every new thing was overwhelming. The paved roads confused her. The houses looked all wrong. And when they passed through a small town and Lily saw crowds of people, she curled into a ball on the seat and whimpered. They stopped at a medical clinic on the outskirts of town. Dr. Phillips, a kind older doctor, had been briefed on the situation. She came out to the truck rather than making Lily go inside. "Hello, Lily," she said gently. "I'm a healer. I just want to make sure you're healthy." Lily wouldn't let the doctor touch her at first. She bared her teeth and growled. But Dr. Phillips was patient. She showed Lily all her instruments first, let her smell them and touch them. She moved slowly, explaining everything. The examination revealed what they'd feared. Lily was malnourished and underweight. She had scars from old injuries that had healed wrong. Her teeth were surprisingly good, but she had several parasites from eating raw meat. She needed vaccines, vitamins, proper medical care. But physically, miraculously, she was okay. She'd survived against all odds. The team had arranged for a temporary placement at a specialized facility in Montana. It was called Mountain Haven, and it worked with traumatized children. They had experience with kids from extreme situations. More importantly, they had land. Lots of it, including a wolf sanctuary. When Tom had promised Lily she could still see wolves, he'd done research. Mountain Haven was perfect. They could help Lily transition to human life while still allowing her to maintain a connection to the animals she loved. The drive to Montana took 2 days. They stopped at a motel the first night, and that was another struggle. Lily refused to sleep on the bed, finding it too soft and strange. She made a nest on the floor with the blankets and slept there, curled up like she did in the cabin. Rachel stayed with her, sitting up most of the night to make sure she was okay. Several times Lily woke up whimpering, looking around confused. She'd call out for her pack, her voice breaking. "They're not here, sweetie," Rachel would say. "But you're safe. I promise you're safe." When they finally arrived at Mountain Haven, Director James Mitchell came out to meet them personally. He was a tall man with kind eyes and a gentle way of speaking. He'd worked with wild children before, though never one quite like Lily. "Welcome, Lily," he said, not approaching too close. "We're so glad you're here. Let me show you around." The facility was amazing. It sat on 200 acres of wilderness with mountains in the distance. There were several small buildings where the children stayed, each designed to feel more like a home than an institution, and in the back, behind strong fences, was the wolf sanctuary. When Lily saw the wolves, she ran. Not away, but toward them. She pressed herself against the fence, making the sounds she'd learned from her pack. The sanctuary wolves approached curiously. They could smell the wild on her, recognized her as something between human and wolf. James watched with interest. Remarkable. The wolves sensed something different about her. She was raised by them, Tom explained. From age 4 to 12. 8 years with a wild pack. James shook his head in wonder. 8 years. That's a long time. Longer than most documented cases. Her reintegration will be challenging. That was putting it mildly. Over the next few weeks, the team at Mountain Haven discovered just how wild Lily really was. She refused to wear regular clothes, tearing them off the moment she could. She wouldn't use silverware, preferring to eat with her hands or even her face. The first time they tried to give her a bath, she fought like a cornered animal. It took 3 people to hold her, and she bit one of the staff members hard enough to draw blood. After that, they let her bathe in the outdoor stream, which she preferred anyway. Sleeping was another issue. She couldn't sleep through the night without waking up terrified. She'd howl for her pack, the sound echoing through the facility and disturbing everyone. The staff started letting her spend more time at the wolf sanctuary, and that helped. The wolves calmed her, but there were small victories too. Lily learned to brush her teeth, fascinated by the minty taste of toothpaste. She loved books, spending hours looking at pictures, and slowly, painfully slowly, her language skills improved. A speech therapist named Carol worked with her daily. Lily's vocal cords had adjusted to wolf sounds, making human speech difficult. But Carol was patient, doing exercises to help strengthen the right muscles. "Lily want water," Lily would say, her grammar broken but understandable. "I want water," Carol would correct gently. "Can you try?" "I want water," Lily repeated carefully. Every small step was celebrated. Every new word, every moment of appropriate behavior. Every time she chose to act human instead of wolf. 2 months after arriving at Mountain Haven, it was time for Lily to meet her biological parents. Jennifer and David Patterson arrived on a cold November morning. They were both nervous wrecks. Rachel met with them first, preparing them. "She won't know you," Rachel said honestly. "She might not even remember you. And she's not the little girl you lost. You need to understand that." "We know," Jennifer said, though tears were already streaming down her face. "We just want to see her, to let her know we never gave up." David was quieter, more reserved. The years had been hard on him. The guilt of losing his daughter had nearly destroyed him. "Will she blame us?" he asked quietly. "For not finding her?" "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But you can't blame yourselves. What happened was a terrible accident. You did everything you could." They walked to the common area where Lily was waiting with Tom. She sat on the floor, more comfortable there than in chairs. When she saw the strangers, she tensed. Jennifer saw her daughter and gasped. Even under the wild exterior, she recognized her. The shape of her face, the color of her eyes. Her baby, grown and changed, but still hers. "Lily?" Jennifer's voice broke. "Oh my God, Lily." Lily looked at the crying woman with confusion. She didn't remember her. Not really. But something stirred deep in her memory. A smell, maybe, or the sound of the woman's voice. Something familiar. "Lily, these are your parents," Tom said gently. "Your mama and papa. They've been looking for you for a very long time." David stepped forward, his hands shaking. "We love you, Lily. We never stopped loving you. We looked everywhere. I'm so sorry we didn't find you sooner." Lily studied them both. Then she spoke, her words slow and careful. "You, my mama, my papa." "Yes," Jennifer said, kneeling down but not approaching too close. "I'm your mama, and I'm so happy you're alive. So happy." Lily pulled out her rotted stuffed wolf, the one she'd carried from the cabin. "You gave me this. When I was little." Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. Yes, we did. For your 3rd birthday. You loved wolves even then. You slept with that toy every night?" Something clicked in Lily's mind. A fragment of memory surfaced. Being tucked into bed, a soft blanket. The smell of her mother's perfume, the stuffed wolf held close. It was hazy and dreamlike, but real. "I remember," Lily whispered. "Little bit. I remember being safe. Being warm." Jennifer couldn't hold back anymore. She moved closer, slowly, telegraphing every movement. "Can I hug you, please?" "I've wanted to hug you for 8 years." Lily didn't understand hugs anymore. The wolves had groomed her and nuzzled her, but hugging was a human thing she'd forgotten. She looked at Tom for reassurance. "It's okay," Tom said. "Hugs are how humans show love. It's like how your wolf pack would surround you. It means you're safe, you're loved." Lily nodded slowly. Jennifer wrapped her arms around her daughter, gently at first, then tighter. She sobbed into Lily's hair, years of grief and loss and desperate hope pouring out. Lily stood stiff at first, uncomfortable with the contact. But slowly, tentatively, she lifted her arms and put them around her mother. It felt strange but not bad, and the woman smelled right. Familiar in a way Lily couldn't explain. David joined them, his own tears falling. They held their daughter between them, a family reunited but forever changed. Tom watched from a distance, his own eyes wet. This was the moment they'd all been working toward. But he knew it was just the beginning. The real work of healing, of becoming a family again, was just... The reunion with her parents was just the start. The real challenge was helping Lily learn to be human again, while not destroying the wild spirit that had kept her alive. It was a delicate balance that no one was quite sure how to achieve. Jennifer and David visited every weekend. At first, the visits were awkward and painful. Lily didn't know how to act around them. She'd revert to wolf behavior, walking on all fours or eating with her face in the food. Her parents watched with breaking hearts, seeing their daughter but not recognizing the wild creature she'd become. But Jennifer was determined. She'd lost 8 years with her daughter. She wasn't going to waste another minute. She started bringing things from Lily's childhood. Photo albums, old toys, videos of birthday parties. Slowly, carefully, she tried to rebuild connections to Lily's lost past. One day, Jennifer brought an old music box. It played a lullaby she'd sung to Lily every night before bed. When the tinny music started playing, Lily's head jerked up. She knew that sound. Her body remembered even if her mind didn't. "Mama used to sing this?" Lily asked, her grammar improving week by week. "Every night," Jennifer said, her voice thick with emotion. "You'd fall asleep to this song. Do you remember?" Lily closed her eyes listening. Fragments of memory surfaced. Being small, being held, being loved. A warm bed. A soft blanket. A feeling of absolute safety. It was like looking through a foggy window into another life. "I think I remember," Lily whispered, "but it feels like a dream." The staff at Mountain Haven worked with Lily daily on basic skills. There was so much she'd forgotten or never learned. Simple things like using the bathroom properly, washing her hands, getting dressed. Everything had to be relearned. Carol, the speech therapist, made incredible progress with Lily's language. But there were some things that couldn't be fixed. Lily's voice would always carry a slight growl, a remnant of years of making wolf sounds, and she'd never completely lose her heightened senses. She could smell things other people couldn't, hear sounds from far away. Her night vision was remarkable. These wolf-taught skills stayed with her, making her different from other children. School was the biggest challenge. Mountain Haven had a small educational program, but Lily struggled. The classroom environment was overwhelming. Too many people, too many sounds, too many rules. She'd panic and try to run. Her teacher, Mr. Peterson, tried a different approach. He took lessons outside. In the forest, surrounded by nature, Lily relaxed and could focus. She learned to read using books about animals. She learned math by counting pine cones and rocks. It was unconventional, but it worked. Lily was brilliant in her own way. She could track animals better than any expert. She understood weather patterns instinctively. She knew which plants were edible and which were poisonous. The wilderness had been her school, and she'd learned its lessons well. The hardest part was nighttime. Lily suffered from terrible nightmares. She'd wake up screaming, reliving the night she got lost. The storm, the darkness, the fear. Her therapist, Dr. Williams, worked with her on processing that trauma. "Tell me about that night," Dr. Williams would say gently during their sessions. "I was scared," Lily would say, her eyes distant. Thunder was so loud. Mama and Papa were shouting, but I couldn't hear them. I ran and ran. Then I was alone. What happened next? I found the cabin. It was dark and smelled bad, but it was dry. I stayed there. I cried for Mama, but she didn't come." Lily's voice would break. Nobody came. "But the wolves came," Dr. Williams prompted. "Yes, the wolves came. I was so scared when I first saw them. But they didn't hurt me. The big gray one, the alpha female, she brought me food. She let me sleep near her. She became my new mama. These therapy sessions were painful but necessary. Lily needed to process both the trauma of being lost and the grief of losing her wolf family. She was mourning 2 families now in different ways. The wolf sanctuary became Lily's refuge. Whenever things got too hard, too overwhelming, she'd go sit by the fence. The sanctuary wolves recognized her now, always coming to greet her. The staff eventually let her go inside the enclosure under supervision. Watching Lily with the wolves was extraordinary. She moved like them, communicated like them. The wolves accepted her as one of their own. She'd spend hours lying among them, and the staff could see the peace it brought her. But this worried her parents. David especially struggled with it. "She needs to be with people, not animals," he said during a family therapy session. "She needs to learn to be human." "She is human," Lily shot back, her voice fierce. But wolves are my family too. You can't make me forget them. The therapist mediated. Lily makes a valid point. The wolves saved her life. They're part of who she is now. Trying to separate her completely from that would be harmful. Jennifer understood better than David. Maybe because she was a mother, or maybe just because she could see what Lily needed. We have to accept all of her, Jennifer said. The human part and the wild part. They're both our daughter now. Slowly, painfully, the family learned how to be a family again. It didn't look like other families. Lily still preferred sleeping on the floor in a nest of blankets. She still ate some foods with her hands. She still howled sometimes when she was sad or scared. But progress happened. 6 months after arriving at Mountain Haven, Lily spoke in complete sentences most of the time. She could read simple books. She understood basic social rules, even if she didn't always follow them. She also started expressing emotions in more human ways. When she was happy, she smiled instead of just wagging her whole body. When she was sad, she cried human tears instead of whimpering like a wolf. One breakthrough came on a Saturday afternoon. Jennifer was visiting, and they were looking at old photos together. Lily pointed to a picture of the two of them at a park. "I remember this," Lily said clearly. "We were feeding ducks. I was wearing my yellow dress. I was happy," Jennifer gasped. "Yes, that was the summer before it happened. You loved that dress. You wanted to wear it every day." Lily looked at her mother directly, making eye contact in a way she rarely did. "I'm sorry I forgot you. I'm sorry I forgot being your daughter." "Oh, sweetheart." Jennifer pulled Lily close. "You have nothing to be sorry for. You survived. That's what matters. And we're learning to be a family again. That's all I want." David started visiting more often, taking time off work to be with Lily. He learned to meet her where she was instead of expecting her to be the 4-year-old he'd lost. They took walks together in the forest. He taught her to fish, and she taught him to track deer. On one of these walks, David said, "I'm proud of you, you know. What you survived, how strong you are. You're remarkable, Lily." It was the first time he'd really seen her, not as a lost child to be fixed, but as the incredible person she'd become. Lily looked up at him. "I'm glad you're my papa. I'm glad Mama found me. We'll always be here for you," David promised, "no matter what." As the seasons changed and winter approached Mountain Haven, Lily had been there for almost a year. The staff began discussing the next phase. Eventually, Lily would need to leave, either to live with her parents or in a more permanent therapeutic setting, but no one was rushing it. Lily needed time, lots of it, to be ready for the outside world. She'd made incredible progress, but she was still so fragile, still so wild. One cold December evening, Lily stood at the wolf sanctuary fence watching the wolves play in the snow. Tom came to stand beside her. He visited often, checking on the girl he'd found in his grandfather's cabin. "How are you doing, Lily?" he asked. She thought about the question. "I'm confused a lot. I don't know if I'm a girl or a wolf. I don't know where I belong." Tom chose his words carefully. "Maybe you're both. Maybe you can be a girl who understands wolves. A human who knows how to be wild. That's not a bad thing to be." Lily looked at him with those intense eyes that still sometimes reflected light like an animal's. "Can I be both? Can I have two families?" "I think you already do," Tom said gently. "And that makes you special. Not broken. Special." Those words meant everything to Lily. For months, she'd felt like something was wrong with her, like she needed to be fixed to be made normal. But maybe normal wasn't the goal. Maybe being herself, wild and human together, was enough. That night, Lily slept better than she had in months. She was still on the floor in her nest of blankets, but she didn't wake up screaming. She dreamed of running through forests, but this time she wasn't alone. Her wolf pack ran on one side and her human family walked on the other, and she moved between them easily, belonging to both worlds, loved by both families. It was just a dream, but it felt like hope. And hope was something Lily hadn't felt in a very long time. 2 years had passed since Tom found Lily in that cabin. 2 years of hard work, setbacks, breakthroughs, and slow, steady progress. Now, at 14 years old, Lily was ready for the next step. The question was, what would that step be? Jennifer and David had reconciled during this time. Not romantically, but as partners in raising their remarkable daughter. They'd both moved to Montana to be closer to Mountain Haven. They bought a house together, separate bedrooms, but a shared mission, giving Lily a home. But it wasn't a normal home. They'd bought property on the edge of wilderness with 10 acres of forest. They'd built a special room for Lily with windows on all sides so she could see outside. They'd even worked with wildlife officials to ensure wolves passing through the area wouldn't be disturbed. "We want you to come home," Jennifer told Lily during a family meeting. "But only if you're ready. Only if you want to." Lily looked at the photos of the house they'd prepared. It looked nice, safe, but would she feel trapped there? Would she miss Mountain Haven? Would she miss having the wolf sanctuary nearby? Dr. Williams helped her work through these fears. "Change is scary," the therapist said, "especially for you after everything you've been through. But staying afraid won't help you grow." "What if I can't do it?" Lily asked. "What if I'm too wild to live in a house?" "Then we'll figure something else out," Dr. Williams said simply. "There's no pressure here. No one is going to force you into anything." Tom visited one last time before the big decision. He and Lily sat by the wolf sanctuary watching the pack doze in the afternoon sun. "You gave me my life back," Lily told him. "When you found me, you could have just left. Called someone and walked away. But you stayed. You cared." Tom felt his throat tighten. "You were alone. No one should be alone like that." "I wasn't alone," Lily corrected. "I had my pack. But I understand what you mean. I needed humans too. I needed to remember that part of myself." "And now?" Tom asked. "What do you need now?" Lily thought about it. "I need both. I need my human family. But I need to stay connected to the wild too. I can't be locked in a house all the time. I can't pretend I'm a normal girl." "You are normal," Tom said. "Just a different kind of normal." That conversation helped Lily make her decision. She would try living with her parents. But she negotiated terms. She could visit Mountain Haven whenever she needed. She could spend time in the forest. She could be wild when she needed to be wild. The transition happened slowly. First overnight visits, then weekends, then whole weeks. Each time, Lily returned to Mountain Haven to process her feelings with Dr. Williams. Living in a house was harder than she expected. The walls felt confining. The rules about when to eat and sleep felt arbitrary. She struggled with the concept of privacy, often just walking into rooms without knocking. But there were good things too. Jennifer cooked meals that actually tasted good. David built Lily a treehouse in their biggest oak tree, a place where she could sleep outside when she needed to. They never pushed her to be something she wasn't. School remained impossible. Traditional classroom education just didn't work for Lily. But Jennifer homeschooled her, taking lessons outside whenever possible. Lily learned differently than other kids, but she learned. She became fascinated with biology and animal behavior. She read every book about wolves she could find. She watched nature documentaries obsessively, and she started writing her own observations about wolf behavior based on her experiences. James Mitchell from Mountain Haven helped her turn these writings into something special. With his guidance, Lily began documenting her unique perspective on wolves. She described their communication, their family structures, their hunting strategies, all from the viewpoint of someone who'd lived as part of a pack. When she was 15, a wildlife magazine published one of her articles. It was titled, "What Wolves Taught Me About Family." The response was overwhelming. Scientists, researchers, and animal lovers from around the world wanted to know more. Lily was terrified of the attention at first. But Tom encouraged her. "You have a gift," he said. "You understand these animals in a way no one else does. Share that. Help people see wolves the way you do." So Lily became an advocate. She spoke at wildlife conferences, though always with someone supportive nearby in case she got overwhelmed. She worked with conservation groups to protect wolf habitats. She used her story to show that wolves weren't monsters, but intelligent social creatures capable of incredible compassion. The media called her the Wolf Girl, which she hated at first. It felt like they were making her into a circus act. But eventually she reclaimed the term. Yes, she was the Wolf Girl, and she was proud of it. On her 16th birthday, Jennifer and David threw her a small party. Just family and a few close friends from Mountain Haven. They had cake and presents, normal birthday things. But they also drove her to a special location in the mountains. It was the valley where Tom had found her. The cabin was still there, preserved now as part of her story. And standing in the clearing, nervous but present, was Tom. Next to him was a wildlife official and a camera crew doing a documentary about Lily's life. But that wasn't the real surprise. As the sun began to set, shapes emerged from the forest. Wolves, a pack of them. and leading them was a large gray female with wise eyes. Lily's breath caught. Is that? Could it be? The alpha female approached slowly, cautiously. 8 years had passed. Did she remember the human child she'd once raised? Lily knelt down, making herself small and non-threatening. She made the sounds she'd learned so long ago, the whines and soft barks that meant, I'm not a threat, I'm family. The wolf stopped a few feet away, studying her. Then her tail began to wag, slowly at first, then faster. She recognized something, some scent or sound or memory. She moved forward and pressed her nose to Lily's face, sniffing deeply. Lily wrapped her arms around the wolf's neck, sobbing. I missed you. I missed you so much. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for being my mama when I needed one. The wolf licked her face, that same gentle grooming gesture from years ago. The rest of the pack approached, circling them, accepting this strange human back into their circle, if only for a moment. Jennifer and David watched with tears streaming down their faces. This was the family that had kept their daughter alive. These wolves had done what they couldn't do. And in that moment, they were grateful to these wild creatures in a way words couldn't express. The pack stayed for about an hour, then melted back into the forest as darkness fell. The alpha female was the last to leave. She looked back once at Lily, their eyes meeting. Then she was gone, disappearing into the trees like a ghost. Lily stood in that clearing, caught between her two worlds, and felt something settle inside her. She didn't have to choose. She could be both. Human and wild, civilized and free. Daughter to two mothers, part of two families. That night, back at her parents' house, Lily did something she'd never done before. She chose to sleep in her bed instead of on the floor. It was too soft and strange, and she probably wouldn't sleep well. But she was trying. She was choosing to be human, at least for tonight. Jennifer tucked her in, something she'd dreamed of doing for 8 years. I love you, Lily. I'm so proud of the person you've become. I love you too, Mama, Lily said, the words coming easier now. Thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for letting me be myself. Always, Jennifer promised. You're perfect exactly as you are. As Lily drifted off to sleep, she thought about everything she'd been through. Getting lost as a small child, being adopted by wolves, surviving in the wilderness, being found and brought back to civilization, relearning how to be human while trying not to forget how to be wild. It had been the hardest journey imaginable, but she'd survived. More than that, she'd found a way to live between two worlds. She'd found purpose in sharing her unique perspective, and she'd found love from both families, human and wolf. The cabin in the mountains still stood, a monument to her survival. Tom visited it sometimes, maintaining it, keeping it as a reminder that miracles do happen, that lost children can be found, that wildness and humanity can coexist. Lily went on to write a book about her experiences. She became a leading voice in wolf conservation. She never became what people might call normal, but she became something better. She became herself, fully and completely. She split her time between the human world and the wild. She had friends now, people who accepted her quirks and differences. She went to college online studying wildlife biology. She had a future, something she never could have imagined during those lonely nights in the cabin. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, she would stand on her porch and howl into the darkness, and from somewhere in the distant mountains her pack would answer. They hadn't forgotten her either. They never would. Years later, people would ask Lily if she regretted those 8 years in the wilderness, if she wished she'd been found sooner, if she wished she'd never gotten lost at all. Her answer was always the same. Those years made me who I am. They were hard and scary and lonely sometimes, but they also showed me strength I didn't know I had. They taught me about love and family in ways most people never learn. I wouldn't change it because changing it would mean changing me. Tom Henderson, now in his 60s, still visited Lily regularly. They'd formed a bond that went beyond friendship. He'd saved her, yes,